I'm Kendra Daniels, 29 years old. Last June, on my wedding day, my own mother seized the microphone before 200 guests and uttered words I could never erase. She declared me a liar. She claimed I had trapped my husband. She insisted everything about me, everything they believed they knew, was false. The room of 200 fell utterly silent. My bouquet remained clutched in my hand. My mascara hadn't even begun to run. Yet inside, I was crumbling completely. What my mother never suspected was that my husband had quietly spent 6 months investigating her. What he uncovered, forged documents, stolen savings, recorded confessions, would dismantle a decade of deception in less than 5 minutes. 6 people left that reception in tears, not for her, but for themselves. They suddenly understood they had been her victims as well. Before I reveal the full story, please pause to like and subscribe, but only if this tale truly resonates with you. I'd also love to hear where you're watching from right now and what time it is there. Please share it in the comments. Now, allow me to take you back 3 years to the evening I first understood something in my family was profoundly, deeply wrong. I grew up convinced I was terrible with money. Not because anyone presented a spreadsheet or highlighted a bank statement, but simply because my mother repeated it endlessly. From the moment I could clutch a dollar bill, Judith Hale controlled every penny that entered our home. Allowance? She kept it. Birthday cash from relatives? I'll put it somewhere safe for you, baby. Summer job paychecks at 16? Hand them over. You'll only waste them. And I believed her. I accepted it the way one accepts that the sky is blue, without question, without evidence, without even pausing to wonder why. When I was 17, my grandfather, Harold Morrow, passed away. He was a retired carpenter, a gentleman who carried the scent of cedar and black coffee. He always called me Kendra Girl and would secretly pass me $10 bills when Mom wasn't watching. After his funeral, I asked my mother whether Grandpa had left anything for me or my sister Sloane. She answered without a flicker of hesitation. He barely left enough to cover the funeral expenses, Kendra. You know he wasn't a wealthy man. I never saw a will. I never inquired again. At 22, I moved out, renting a tiny studio apartment barely larger than a parking space. I began freelancing as a graphic designer, working 12-hour days. I recorded every cent in an actual paper notebook because I was so terrified of my own spending. Yet every month, my bank account defied logic. Money appeared unexpectedly, then disappeared without trace. Unfamiliar deposits surfaced. Inexplicable withdrawals occurred. I'd phone the bank, get transferred 3 times, then surrender. I repeated to myself what my mother had always insisted. You're just not good with money, Kendra. I was 29 before the truth emerged. I wasn't terrible with money. Someone was stealing it. This is how my mother functioned. If I raised any question about finances, choices, or why things felt unjust, she never answered. She cried every single time. After everything I've sacrificed as a single mother, you're accusing me? That one sentence could terminate any discussion. It served as her master key. One twist and every door slams shut. My parents divorced when I was 8. Dad relocated to Oregon. Phone calls grew briefer, then ceased entirely. Judith became the gravitational center of our household, and she preferred it that way. She informed relatives I was difficult. She told her church friends I was ungrateful. She even told our neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, that I had once stolen $40 from her purse when I was 11. I never took a thing. But Mrs. Patterson still glances at me with suspicion to this day. Meanwhile, my younger sister Sloane experienced an entirely different version of motherhood. Mom covered her college tuition, purchased a used Honda Civic for her 20th birthday, and took her shopping for professional outfits when she applied to graduate programs. When I questioned why I received no similar support, Judith had her response prepared. Sloane is responsible. You're not. I accepted it year after year. I swallowed it like bitter medicine I believed I had earned. Then, roughly 3 months before I met Marcus, Sloane texted me unexpectedly late one night. Hey, did Mom ever mention Grandpa's trust to you? Something seems strange with my tuition account. I stared at those words for ages. My thumb lingered above the keys. I closed the app, placed my phone aside, and went to sleep. I wasn't prepared. Not yet. But 3 months later, I encountered someone who helped me realize I had been ready the entire time. I simply needed someone to believe me first. I met Marcus on a Tuesday. He occupied a corner booth at a downtown cafe, laptop open, papers scattered across the table like evidence at a crime scene. I had arrived to meet a client who never appeared. I ordered coffee, chose a booth 2 spaces away, and tried not to stare at the man scowling at a spreadsheet as though it had personally insulted him. He noticed my gaze, smiled, and said, "Sorry about the chaos. Numbers refused to cooperate." I laughed. He invited me to move closer so he wouldn't have to raise his voice. I accepted. That was all. No sparks, no dramatic moment, just a man with gentle eyes and an exceptionally tidy laptop bag. Marcus was 32, a forensic accountant at an independent auditing firm. Over our third date, he described his work as tracing money that desperately hides itself. I found it intriguing. I never imagined it would become relevant. As weeks became months, Marcus began observing details about me that no one else ever noticed. You budget everything, Kendra. Every grocery trip, every utility payment, you've tracked it meticulously. Yet you keep insisting you're terrible with money. That contradiction doesn't align. I shrugged. Maybe I'm just overcompensating. He put his fork down and studied me the same way he examined those spreadsheets. Deliberate, patient, as though the explanation waited if he simply persisted. You haven't purchased new shoes in 2 years. Your winter coat has a broken zipper. You eat rice 4 nights a week. He paused. That's not poor money management, Kendra. That's someone who never has enough, and I don't understand why. I shifted topics, mentioning a design project. He allowed it, but the intensity in his gaze remained. He had spotted an inconsistency, and Marcus was the sort of man who could never tolerate a misplaced number. The first hour passed smoothly. Judith asked Marcus about his family, admired his tie, laughed at his jokes. Then she began. "Kendra's always been such a dreamer," she said, refilling her wine glass. "Not much of a doer, head forever in the clouds." Marcus set his knife down carefully. "Actually, she built her freelance business from nothing. That requires genuine discipline." Judith's smile remained fixed, but something in her eyes turned icy, like a lock clicking shut. "Well, a mother sees things a partner doesn't," she replied. "I'm sure," Marcus answered, polite even, but clearly unconvinced. The rest of the meal grew noticeably quieter. Sloane texted me beneath the table. Judith cleared plates with slightly exaggerated force. That night, my phone rang at 11. "I don't trust him, Kendra." "Mom, he was perfectly polite to you. He's after something. He's not after anything. Men like that, smooth, educated, they always want something." I closed my eyes. "Mom, please, I love him." A long silence followed. Then, very softly, "You'll see." She ended the call. The next morning in the car, Marcus said something that lingered. "Your mom asked me what I do 3 times last night. She's just curious." Maybe, but every time I answered forensic accounting, she switched topics like the phrase made her uneasy. I told him he was reading too much into it. He nodded. He didn't press. Looking back, that dinner marked the turning point. Not for me, for my mother. She saw Marcus clearly, and she was afraid, because for the first time, someone close to me knew exactly how to trace money. Judith didn't delay. Within a week of that dinner, she began a subtle campaign, phone call by phone call, text by text, to sway everyone around me against Marcus. She started with my Aunt Colleen. I know because Colleen brought it up at a family barbecue, trying to sound offhand. "Your mom says Marcus is pretty controlling, huh?" "He's not controlling, Aunt Colleen. She said he monitors your spending. He's an accountant. He monitors everyone's spending. It's literally his job." Colleen shrugged, but the doubt had taken root. Next came Sloane. Over lunch, Judith told her, "Your sister's drifting away from this family. That man is isolating her." Sloane confided in me later. She didn't know what to believe anymore. Then the messages arrived directly to me, gentle, almost tender. That was always the most dangerous version of my mother. "Are you sure Marcus isn't just with you for stability, honey? I only worry. You've never been great at reading people. A mother knows, Kendra. I see things you can't." I finally phoned her. "Why are you doing this, Mom? I'm protecting you. That's what mothers do. It doesn't feel like protection." A pause. "That's because you've never known what's good for you." After that call, I sat on my kitchen floor, hugged my knees, and breathed. Part of me wanted to scream, another part wanted to apologize, and that second part terrified me most because it proved her voice still echoed louder than mine inside my own mind. That night, I looked across the dinner table at Marcus. He was reading, calm and steady. "I hear you, Mom," I whispered to the empty air, "but I get to decide what's good for me now." I just didn't yet realize how high the price of that decision would be. Marcus proposed on a Saturday in October. He brought me back to the cafe where we first met, the same corner booth, the same harsh fluorescent lights. He'd concealed the ring inside a book he'd pretended to read, an old hardcover on tax law. When he opened it to reveal the hollowed center, I laughed until tears came. "Is that a yes?" he asked. "It's a yes." He slipped the ring onto my finger, and for perhaps 45 seconds, the world felt flawless. Then I called my mother. "Mom, Marcus proposed." I said yes. Silence. 10 full seconds. I counted. "I hope you know what you're doing." No congratulations, no excitement, no, "Oh, honey, I'm so happy for you." Just that cold, measured tone, like a quiet warning. I hung up and convinced myself it was merely shock. She'd come around. 2 days later, a letter arrived from my bank. It stated that a savings account in my name had been closed at the request of the joint account holder. Remaining balance? 0. I called immediately. "I didn't request this. I didn't even know this account existed." The representative paused, typed, "Ma'am, this account was opened when you were 17. The cosigner is Judith Howe." 17? "Yes, ma'am. August 2013. August 2013, the month my grandfather died. What was the balance before it closed?" More typing. "I'm not able to disclose the full history over the phone, but the closing balance was withdrawn in one transaction 3 days ago." 3 days ago? The day after I told my mother about the engagement. I set the phone down. My hands trembled. 17, the year my grandfather passed, the year my mother told me he hadn't left much. How long had this been happening? That night, I sat across from Marcus at our kitchen table and told him everything. The bank letter, the secret joint account, the precise timing, 3 days after the proposal, August 2013. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't pound the table. He didn't even appear surprised. He looked like a man who'd been waiting for the final piece of the puzzle to click into place, and it just had. "Can I see your bank statements?" he asked. "All of them." I hesitated, not because I distrusted him, but because some small, ingrained part of me, the part my mother had shaped, still whispered that I'd done something wrong, that this was somehow my fault. "All of them," he repeated, gentle as if speaking to someone teetering on a ledge. I opened my laptop and handed over everything, every login, every statement, every fragment of my financial history. Marcus worked until 3 a.m. I fell asleep on the couch. When I woke, he was still at the table, but his expression had changed, harder, more resolute. "Kendra," he said quietly, "there are at least 4 accounts tied to your social security number that you never opened. 4, and they've all been methodically drained over the past 12 years. 12 years, since I was 17, since my grandfather Harold died." "What do you want to do?" Marcus asked. I stared at the table, at the figures glowing on his screen, at the man who had stayed up all night unraveling the truth simply because I mattered to him. "Find everything," I said. That night, Marcus began assembling the case. He had no idea yet that what he would uncover would be far uglier than either of us could have predicted. He started with Grandpa Harold. If accounts were opened in your name at 17, he explained, there had to be a triggering event, an inheritance, a trust, something that put money there to begin with. He searched public probate records first and located Harold Morrill's name in the county system. Then he found Grandpa's attorney, Donald Fletcher, a retired lawyer now 74, living quietly in a modest house just outside town, still razor sharp. Mr. Fletcher remembered Harold vividly. Good man, came to me in 2012, about a year before he passed, wanted to set up a trust for his two granddaughters, made sure it was ironclad. He still kept the original documents. Marcus sat at Mr. Fletcher's kitchen table and read the will. Then he read it again. Harold Morrill had established a trust worth $185,000, divided equally between his granddaughters, Kendra Daniels and Sloan Daniels. Judith Hale was named trustee, but the terms were explicit. Each granddaughter was to receive her share upon turning 21. I was 29. Sloan was 25. Neither of us had ever seen a cent. Then Marcus asked the question that cracked everything open. Do you have any other version of this will on file? Mr. Fletcher frowned. What do you mean, other version? There's only one. Marcus showed him a photo on his phone, a document Judith had presented to the family years earlier. It stated, all assets to Judith Hale for the management and care of the family. Mr. Fletcher studied the screen for a long moment. That's not what Harold signed. That's not even the same format. Two wills, one authentic, one fabricated, and $92,500 that should have reached me 8 years earlier. Your grandfather didn't forget you, Kendra, Marcus said quietly. He never forgot you. He didn't pressure me, he never did, but he said something I couldn't dismiss. If we're building a real case, we need her to admit it in her own words. We lived in a one-party consent state. I could legally record a phone call without her knowledge, and it would hold up in court. I understood the law. I just wasn't sure I could endure the conversation. It took 3 days to gather the courage. I sat on our bedroom floor. Marcus stayed in the next room, close enough to hear, far enough to give me space. My hands shook so violently I had to cradle the phone in both palms. I pressed call. She answered on the second ring. Mom, did Grandpa leave anything for me and Sloan? Her reply came too quickly. I already told you. He barely left enough to cover funeral costs. But someone mentioned there might have been a trust. Who told you that? Her tone sharpened. That Marcus, he's filling your head with nonsense. Mom, I just need the truth. And then the familiar shift, the softening, the weapon she had wielded against me my whole life. Baby, I am the truth. Everything I did was to protect you girls. Protect us from what? Silence. I could hear her breathing. From making the same mistakes I made. Your grandfather's money would have ruined you. I nearly dropped the phone. She said it. Not that the money didn't exist, but that it would have ruined me. She had just confessed. The trust was real, the money was real, and she had spent it. I ended the call and set the phone on the carpet. Marcus appeared in the doorway. He didn't speak. He simply sat beside me on the floor. She said it would have ruined me, I whispered. She spent it on herself, and she had recorded her own admission without realizing it. The wedding was 2 months away. Marcus and I decided together. We wouldn't move yet, not until the evidence was unbreakable. He duplicated everything, the original will, the forged document, bank records, the recording, and sent copies to a lawyer and to secure cloud storage. The files lived on his phone, on 2 external drives, and in a locked folder at the attorney's office. If anything ever goes wrong, he said, we're covered from every direction. I nodded and tried to refocus on the wedding, the venue, the flowers, the guest list. 200 people, family, friends, co-workers, and Judith. Then something odd happened. My mother, who had spent weeks undermining my relationship, suddenly turned helpful. She called with caterer suggestions, offered to manage the seating chart, asked about centerpieces. She sounded warm, involved, almost joyful. "I just want your day to be perfect, baby," she said. I should have been wary, but a part of every daughter, no matter how deeply wounded, still longs to believe her mother can love without strings attached. I let her in. She asked for one favor, a speaking slot at the reception, a mother's toast to her daughter, she called it. I said yes. That same week, Sloan called, voice hushed. "Mom's been on the phone nonstop. She's talking to Uncle Greg. She sounds furious." About what? I don't know, but it doesn't feel right. I asked Marcus that night, should we be worried? He looked at me across the kitchen counter, calm as ever, but something new flickered behind his eyes. Readiness. We should be prepared. I handed my mother the microphone. I gave the wolf the keys to the henhouse, and I had no clue what she intended to do with them. So at that moment, I possessed proof that my mother had forged my grandfather's will, drained my accounts, and lied to me for over a decade. And now she wanted to give a toast at my wedding. If you were in my place, would you have let her speak? Drop a 1 in the comments if you'd say yes, or a 2 if you had have shut it down right there. I genuinely want to know what you would have done. Now, let me tell you what happened next. The day was perfect. That's what makes it hurt more. June 14th, an outdoor garden estate 20 minutes outside the city. White canopy, fairy lights draped between ancient oaks, round tables covered in crisp linen, pale blue hydrangeas and glass vases, the exact venue I'd pinned to a vision board 5 years earlier and never imagined I'd actually stand in. 200 guests filled the chairs for the ceremony. Marcus's parents, his older brother, college friends, colleagues, neighbors. On my side, Aunt Colleen, Uncle Greg, cousins, a handful of high school friends, Grandpa Harold's old fishing companion Ray, and Sloan in the front row wearing sage green, already teary before the music began. I walked down the aisle alone. I'd decided that months earlier. If I was stepping into a new life, I would do it on my own strength. Marcus waited under an arch of white roses. His eyes were already rimmed red before I reached him. We spoke our vows, simple, brief, honest. He held my hands the entire time. "I choose you," he said, "today, tomorrow, when it's easy, when it's not." We exchanged rings. We kissed. Everyone rose and applauded. For a fleeting moment, I thought perhaps I had been mistaken. Perhaps today would simply be a wedding, a beautiful, ordinary, flawless wedding. The reception unfolded. Dinner was served, laughter rang out, glasses clinked, couples swayed on the dance floor as golden hour light filtered through the oaks. At the family table, my mother sat in a deep crimson gown, richer, bolder, more commanding than anything else in the space. She looked stunning. She always did. Her hair was perfectly styled, her lipstick freshly applied. She smiled warmly at every guest who passed. But her eyes, if you knew where to look, were glacial. For 3 full hours, I allowed myself to believe this was merely a wedding. A beautiful, normal wedding. Just after 8 o'clock, the MC tapped his glass. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special toast this evening. Please welcome the mother of the bride, Judith Hale." Applause followed, warm, courteous, stronger from the older guests. This was meant to be the tender moment of the night, the mother sharing a sweet memory of her little girl, prompting everyone to reach for their napkins. Judith rose, smoothed her crimson dress, accepted the microphone from the MC with a practiced smile. She stepped to the small podium near the dance floor. The projector screen behind her, the one reserved for our photo slideshow later, remained dark. Fairy lights shimmered overhead. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began. Her voice carried steady warmth and confidence. She scanned the crowd, then settled her gaze on me. "I want to talk about my daughter." I smiled, squeezed Marcus's hand beneath the table. Kendra was the sweetest little girl, always drawing, always dreaming. A few guests nodded. Someone murmured, "Aw." She had this way of looking at the world like it owed her something beautiful. Soft chuckles rippled through the room. My shoulders eased. Perhaps I had been wrong. Perhaps this really was just a toast. Then her tone dipped, just half a note lower, slower. But there are things about my daughter that none of you know. The laughter died instantly. I straightened in my seat. Marcus's grip tightened around my fingers. Judith looked straight at me now, not at the crowd, at me. Things I've tried to tell her, things I've begged her to face. My chest seized. Breathing became impossible. Sloane, at the family table, quietly reached for her phone, placed its screen down on her lap, and pressed record. And then my mother spoke the words that fractured the night in two. "I want everyone here to know," she said, her voice ringing clear across 200 frozen faces, "that my daughter trapped this man." The word trapped struck the room like a physical blow. No one moved. "She has been lying about who she is." A spoon clattered against a plate somewhere behind me. Someone drew a sharp breath. I couldn't tell who. The entire space compressed into a single, suffocating wall of staring eyes. Kendra has been hiding debts, hiding her past, hiding who she really is, from Marcus and from all of you. My fingers went numb around the napkin. I could still feel the fairy lights above, the soft June air, the faint scent of hydrangeas, but none of it felt real anymore. I tried to stop this wedding. Judith pressed a hand to her chest, the gestures she had perfected over decades. I begged her to come clean. She refused. A low murmur spread across the tables. Marcus's mother covered her mouth with her hand. His father leaned forward, jaw clenched. "So I'm doing it for her." Judith turned her gaze to the crowd now, not to me, to them. "Because that's what a mother does." She set the microphone on the podium, stepped down, and returned to her seat with the measured grace of someone who had just delivered a eulogy, so righteous, so untouchable. She sat, smoothed her dress once more, and took a slow sip of water. 200 people stared at me, the bride in white, seated beside a groom who was supposedly the victim of my trap. I couldn't speak. I couldn't stand. I couldn't even cry. Under the table, Sloane's phone was still recording. Beside me, Marcus hadn't released my hand, not once. He leaned in so close only I could hear. "Do you trust me?" I looked at him, my husband, my partner, the man who had spent 6 months quietly preparing for a moment he had prayed would never arrive. I nodded. Marcus gave my hand one final squeeze. Then he let go. He stood slowly, adjusted his jacket, fastened the single button with the same calm precision he applied to spreadsheets, grocery lists, and promises. The room watched him, 200 people unsure what to believe. He walked to the podium, no haste, no tremor. His shoes clicked softly against the wooden dance floor in the heavy silence. Judith glanced up from her water glass. For the first time, something flickered in her eyes, something she couldn't conceal quickly enough. Marcus lifted the microphone and held it the way a man might who had never used one before and didn't particularly care to. "Now, I appreciate Judith's concern." His voice remained even, not cold, not angry, simply level, the way a bridge is level, engineered to bear weight. "She's right about one thing. There are things many of you don't know." He reached into his inside jacket pocket and withdrew his phone. "But the person who has been lying isn't Kendra." He looked directly at my mother. "Actually, Judith, I have something about your family." Judith's mouth opened, then closed. "You see, I'm a forensic accountant. It's my job to follow money that doesn't want to be found." He unlocked the phone and held it up. 6 months ago, Kendra and I discovered irregularities in her financial records, so I started looking. He connected his phone to the projector, the one we had set up for our wedding slideshow. The screen behind the podium flickered to life. My mother's face drained of color. 2 documents appeared side by side. This, Marcus said, indicating the left side, is the original last will and testament of Harold Morrow, filed with his personal attorney, Donald Fletcher, notarized, witnessed, legally binding. He allowed the room to read it. I watched eyes track across the lines. It establishes a trust of $185,000, divided equally between Harold's two granddaughters, Kendra and Sloane. Judith Hale is named as the trust administrator. The will states clearly that each granddaughter receives her share upon turning 21. He paused, let the silence settle like concrete. Kendra is 29. Sloane is 25. Neither has ever received a cent. Then he pointed to the right side of the screen. And this is the version Judith showed the family after Harold's death. This one states, and I'm quoting, "All assets to Judith Hale for the management and care of the family." A murmur broke through the room like water finding a fissure. These two documents are not the same. One is authentic, one is forged. Aunt Colleen rose from her chair. Her napkin drifted to the ground. She didn't retrieve it. Uncle Greg sat rigid, both palms flat on the table, staring at the screen as though he had seen a specter. Judith's chair scraped back violently. She was on her feet. "That's a lie." Her voice cracked high and ragged. "He's making this up. He fabricated." "These are official documents, Judith." He didn't raise his voice, not by a single decibel. "Notarized, verified by the original attorney." He turned to face the room. "Kendra, my wife, was entitled to receive $92,500 8 years ago." He looked directly at my mother. "She never saw a single cent." Judith opened her mouth. No sound emerged. "But there's more," Marcus said. Those 3 words dropped like stones into still water. Ripples spread across every table. He tapped his phone. A progress bar filled the projector screen. Then audio, clear, unmistakable, poured through the reception speakers. My voice first. "Mom, did Grandpa leave anything for me and Sloane?" Hers immediate. "I already told you, he barely left enough to cover funeral costs." A pause. My voice again. "But someone mentioned there might have been a trust." Judith's tone sharpened. "Who told you that? That Marcus? He's filling your head with nonsense." Guests exchanged glances. Some stared at Judith. She stood beside her chair, fingers clamped around the back, knuckles blanched. Then the moment everyone would carry forever. My voice, steady. "Mom, I just need the truth." Hers, softening into that familiar honeyed weapon. "Baby, I am the truth. Everything I did was to protect you girls." "Protect us from what?" Silence stretched on the recording. "From making the same mistakes I made. Your grandfather's money would have ruined you." The audio cut off. The garden fell so still I could hear ice clinking in someone's glass 3 tables away. Judith had just admitted, in her own voice, her own words, that the money existed and she had taken it. "That was taken out of context," she shouted. Marcus didn't flinch. "There are 7 minutes of context on this recording, Judith. Would you like me to play the rest?" She didn't respond. At the family table, Sloane rose, phone still recording, tears streaming. "Mom," she said, voice fracturing on the single word, "is my tuition account real, or did you take from me too?" Judith whirled toward her youngest daughter. "Don't you dare turn on me." Sloane held her ground. "I'm not turning on you. I'm asking you a question." It began with Aunt Colleen. She had remained standing since the wills appeared on screen. Now she stepped forward from behind her table, hands shaking, voice carrying across the garden. "Judith, you told me you'd repay $30,000. You said you were struggling. You said it was for the girls." Judith's head snapped toward her. "Colleen, sit down. I took out a second mortgage for you." Colleen's voice cracked. "I almost lost my house." Then Uncle Greg. He didn't rise. He spoke from his seat, voice low and hoarse, as though the words had been trapped in his throat for years. She pushed me out of the trust, said Dad wanted it that way, that he didn't trust me to handle the money. He shook his head slowly. I believed her for 11 years. Cousin Robert, 2 tables back. She borrowed my car in 2019, said she needed it for 2 weeks, told me it was totaled in a parking lot. I never filed a claim because she cried so hard. One by one, like falling dominoes, confessions surfaced from the room, each one a separate wound Judith had inflicted and concealed beneath the same warm smile, the same wounded mother performance. 6 people left the reception. Aunt Colleen walked out in tears, her husband's arm around her shoulders. Uncle Greg followed, one hand covering his face. Cousin Robert, Greg's wife, Linda, a woman I recognized as one of Judith's oldest friends, she departed without a word. And Sloane, my sister, passed her mother without a glance, phone pressed to her chest, tears still falling. They didn't leave because they hated Judith. They left because they saw themselves reflected in that screen. They were victims too, or they were ashamed they had believed her so long. My mother stood alone, crimson dress, candlelight, 200 witnesses, and for the first time in my life, I saw her without the mask. If you have ever discovered that someone you trusted, someone in your own family, had lied to you for years, I want you to know you are not alone, and this story isn't over yet. If you're feeling something right now, tell me in the comments, what would you say to Judith? And if you haven't already, please hit subscribe. The turning point is coming. Let me tell you what happened after the wedding. I don't remember deciding to stand. My body simply moved. The chair slid back. My dress brushed the tablecloth. Marcus's hand grazed my arm, not to restrain me, only to remind me he was there. I walked toward my mother slowly, past tables of guests unsure whether to watch or avert their eyes, past the projector screen still displaying 2 wills, one genuine, one fabricated, past the speakers that still echoed her recorded voice. I stopped 3 feet from her. "Mom." She looked up. Her eyes were wild, not with guilt, not with remorse, but with the frantic, cornered panic of someone who had exhausted every escape. "You don't understand." "I do understand." My voice was calm. "I don't know how. For the first time, I really do. You said I was bad with money. I wasn't. You were taking it." She opened her mouth. "You said Grandpa didn't leave anything for us. He did, and you stole it. I was trying to—" "You said Marcus was after something. He was. He was after the truth." Judith's chin trembled. "Everything I did was for this family." "No, Mom. Everything you did was for control." I drew the deepest breath of the night. "I'm not going to scream at you. I'm not going to make a scene. I'm going to do something you never expected." She stared. "I'm going to walk away and let the truth speak for itself." I turned, returned to my table, sat beside my husband, lifted my water glass and took a sip. My hands remained steady. "You raised me to be quiet. You didn't raise me to be stupid." No one applauded. No one needed to. The silence spoke volumes. The week after the wedding, Marcus and I sat in a law office on the 4th floor of a downtown building. The attorney was Patricia Sinclair, silver hair, reading glasses on a chain, 22 years specializing in estate fraud and financial exploitation. She skipped pleasantries. She opened the folder Marcus had compiled, slipped on her glasses, and began to read. We sat quietly for 11 minutes. I counted the ticks of the wall clock. She closed the folder. "You have a very strong case." Marcus nodded. "We know the forged will alone could justify criminal referral. Combined with the bank records, unauthorized accounts, and recorded admission, this is textbook financial exploitation." She looked at me. "What outcome are you hoping for?" I had considered that question for weeks. Revenge? No. Prison? No. I wanted what belonged to me, and I wanted it to end. I want the money returned, mine and my sister's, and I want her permanently removed from any legal authority over our finances. Patricia nodded. We'll file a civil suit for recovery of the misappropriated trust funds. I also recommend reporting to Adult Protective Services regarding the financial exploitation. I flinched at the word exploitation. It felt too stark, too formal. But Marcus rested his hand on my knee beneath the desk, and I understood. It was the precise word. It had always been the precise word. We're not pressing criminal charges right now. We're giving her the opportunity to resolve this through the civil process. Patricia raised an eyebrow. That's generous. I looked at the folder. 12 years of deception compressed between manila covers. This isn't revenge. This is accountability. Patricia almost smiled. Almost. Then let's get started. Judith fought back. Of course she did. Within 10 days, she had retained her own attorney, a younger man with a glossy briefcase who clearly hadn't yet absorbed the full file. Through him, she released a statement accusing Kendra and Sloan of ungrateful children attempting elder abuse against a devoted single mother. It lasted roughly 72 hours. Her attorney reviewed Marcus's evidence package, the original will, the forged one, bank records, the recorded phone call, the forensic accounting report. 3 days later, he summoned Judith to his office and told her what Patricia Sinclair had already told us. Mrs. Hale, I strongly recommend you settle. Judith refused, fired him, sought another attorney. 2 declined after reviewing the materials. Then the phone calls began. She called Aunt Colleen. Aunt Colleen didn't answer. She called Uncle Greg. He picked up once. You need help, Judith, real help, not from me, from a professional. He ended the call. She called Sloan 3 times. On the 4th, Sloan answered. Mom, I love you, but I can't keep pretending everything is fine when it isn't. Sloan, please, you're all I have left. Then start by telling the truth, Mom, not your version, the actual truth. Judith hung up. I didn't hear any of those conversations firsthand. Sloan shared them later over coffee, hands wrapped around her mug, as though she sat alone in the living room, surrounded by old photographs. One frame captured 4 people, her, me, Sloan, and Grandpa Harold at a 4th of July picnic, all smiles and summer light. I don't know whether her tears came from guilt or from grief, but I do know this. The people she had truly lost weren't in that picture. They were the ones she had pushed away herself. The civil case lasted 4 months. It felt like 4 years. Patricia Sinclair approached every detail with precision. She filed the recovery suit, submitted Marcus's forensic accounting report, and presented the forged will beside the authenticated original. The judge examined the evidence carefully. Judith's 3rd attorney, a court-appointed one after she had exhausted her own resources fighting, offered no real contest. There was nothing left to contest. The ruling came down clearly. Judith Hale was ordered to repay the full trust amount of $185,000 plus accrued interest, totaling approximately $214,000, to be divided equally between Kendra and Sloan Daniels. To satisfy the judgment, she had to sell the house, the one she bought 6 years earlier, with its modern kitchen, paved driveway, and backyard where she once hosted Easter brunches. A house valued at $280,000, largely funded by money taken from her daughters, and in defiance of her father's final wishes. It sold in 31 days. After repaying the trust and covering legal fees, Judith moved into a modest 1-bedroom apartment on the east side of town. No backyard, no driveway, no Easter gatherings. Aunt Colleen filed a separate civil claim for the $30,000 Judith had borrowed and never repaid. She prevailed. The funds were drawn from the remaining sale proceeds. Uncle Greg requested a formal audit of the trust's transaction history. An additional $15,000 in unauthorized withdrawals surfaced and was added to the judgment. Judith was permanently barred from any fiduciary role over family assets. and at Hillrest Community Church, where she had served on the Women's Ministry Board for 9 years, the leadership quietly asked her to step away for a season. No one used the word expelled. They didn't need to. The evidence spoke plainly, and this time, so did the court. Sloan never uploaded the video publicly. She confessed she considered it once, late at night when anger burned hot enough to want the world to see, but she chose otherwise. Instead, she shared it privately with Uncle Greg, Aunt Colleen, Cousin Robert, and a few other relatives who had spent years accepting Judith's version without question. The recording moved through the family like a silent tremor. No one posted it online, but everyone who watched emerged changed. The apologies began arriving, not to Judith, but to me. Cousin Robert called first. "I'm sorry, Kendra. I believed her. I should have asked you." Then Aunt Colleen's husband, Frank. "We had no idea. None of us did." Later came a handwritten letter on cream stationery, the cursive unsteady. It was from Aunt Dorothy, Grandpa Harold's sister, 78, living alone 2 states away. "Dear Kendra, I just learned what my niece did to you and your sister. Harold would be so proud of you, sweetheart. He always said you had the strongest heart in the family. Don't ever let anyone make you doubt that. Love, Aunt Dorothy." I read it at the kitchen table and cried until Marcus brought tissues from the other room, not over money, but because someone who had known my grandfather still saw me the way he had. Aunt Dorothy's letter held one unexpected detail. At the bottom, she added, "Your grandfather wrote you a letter before he passed. He gave it to Judith to deliver. Did you ever receive it?" I hadn't. I never knew it existed. Marcus located it 3 weeks later during the estate sale of Judith's house, sealed, undelivered, tucked in a box for 12 years. My grandfather's final words to me, stolen along with everything else. I opened Grandpa Harold's letter alone. Marcus offered to stay. I asked for 5 minutes. He kissed my forehead and closed the bedroom door. The envelope had yellowed. My name appeared in his familiar blocky, slanted handwriting, the script of a man who spent 50 years gripping a carpenter's pencil more than a pen. Inside, one sheet of lined notebook paper. "Kendra girl, you've got more heart than anyone I know. Don't let anyone tell you different. I set something aside for you and Sloan so you'd both have a good start. Your mama will take care of it until you're ready. I love you, sweetheart. Don't ever forget that. Grandpa H." I pressed the letter to my chest for a long time. 2 days later, I met Sloan at the cafe where I first met Marcus, the same corner booth. She was already there, hands wrapped around an untouched coffee. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner," she said. "You were surviving too, Sloan." "She told me you were jealous of me. That's why you stayed distant. She said you didn't want me around." We looked at each other. 2 sisters raised under the same roof, divided by design. "She played us against each other," Sloan said softly, "the whole time." "I know. Marcus called before the wedding to invite me personally. Mom had told me you didn't want me there." I closed my eyes. Even months later, new layers kept surfacing. "I want us to be real sisters," Sloan said, "not whatever she turned us into." I reached across the table and took her hand. "We already are." We stayed for an hour. We didn't fix everything, but we began, and beginning was enough. 3 months after the wedding, another letter arrived. Judith's handwriting on the envelope, no return address, but the sharp J and looping K were unmistakable. I opened it alone at the kitchen table. Marcus was at work. The solitude felt appropriate. 4 sentences. "Kendra, you have destroyed this family. I hope you're proud of what you and that man have done. I will never forgive you." No apology, no acknowledgement, no truth. Just Judith still reshaping the narrative, still casting herself as the victim, still refusing the mirror. I sat with the letter for an hour. I let every emotion surface: anger, grief, exhaustion, and beneath it all, the quiet, persistent sadness of a daughter who once wished her mother could be different. Then I wrote back, "Mom, I didn't destroy this family. The lies did. I don't hate you, probably never will, but I will not allow you to hurt me again. If you ever want a relationship with me, it begins with honesty, real honesty, not the version where you rewrite events to make yourself the hero. Until then, I need space, and I need you to respect it. I sealed it, stamped it, and walked it to the mailbox. I didn't wait for a reply. Marcus came home that evening and found me on the couch, staring at the ceiling. "You okay?" "I will be." He sat beside me. No questions, just presence. I looked around our small rented apartment, nothing extravagant. On the wall hung our wedding photo, Marcus and I smiling, and in the corner, barely visible, Sloane laughing in her sage green dress. 3 people who chose truth over comfort. That was enough. More than enough. Love without honesty isn't love. It's control wearing a kinder name. 6 months after the wedding, another Tuesday morning in October, I sat in my new studio, a compact space above a downtown bakery, rented with funds that had always belonged to me. A drafting table by the window, a second-hand bookshelf lined with design books, a framed cardinal print Marcus gave me because Grandpa Harold used to say cardinals are visitors from people who love you. Sloane stops by every Thursday now. We're learning to be sisters without pretense. It's awkward at times. We don't agree on everything, but we show up. That matters most. Marcus remains Marcus. Steady, quiet, still double-checking every grocery receipt. Last week, he caught a pricing error at the store. I laughed until tears came. Some habits are worth keeping. Judith, Sloane tells me, has started therapy. I don't know whether it's genuine or another performance. I've decided it's not my responsibility to determine. I spent 29 years trying to interpret my mother. I'm finished. I once believed strength meant preserving peace, saying yes when I meant no, swallowing truth to keep others comfortable. Now I understand strength is standing in a room full of people and choosing honesty over ease, even when your voice trembles, even when the person you're confronting is the one who raised you. My mother gave me the cruelest gift possible on my wedding day, but my husband gave me the greatest one, the truth. And my grandfather, even from beyond, never stopped protecting me. If you're watching and something in your life feels wrong, a number that doesn't balance, a story that keeps shifting, a person who shrinks you every time you question, trust that instinct. You're not crazy. You may simply be surrounded by someone else's deception. My name is Kendra Daniels. I'm 29 years old, and for the first time, I know exactly who I am. Here's what I carry forward. 1. If someone controls your money, they control your life. Monitor your own accounts. Know your own numbers, no matter who discourages you. 2. Silence isn't loyalty. Sometimes the most loving act is speaking up, even when the room prefers quiet. 3. The right partner doesn't just love you, they stand beside you in pursuit of truth. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe. It means more than you realize. And if you've ever had to draw a boundary with someone in your own family, share it in the comments. I read every one.